Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the second episode of Millennials Killing, the show where we millennials continuously ruin everything like we always do. My name is Juan Pablo,
This is Jeff Brennan once again.
and thanks for joining us again. It's been a long week. Jeff, how's your week/weekend?
A week was pretty good. Weekend was also pretty good. Tests are kind of wrapping up. I had one on Friday, and since I'm still in college, that's what my life revolves around as I'm preparing for these grad school applications. But my test went fine. Classes were all good. Work was good. This weekend, I did a lot of delivery runs. The second company I work for was doing a promotion that for the first 5 deliveries that I did, I got an extra $1 per delivery. Next 5, I got an extra $2, and then everything after that, I got an extra $5.
Hey, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so I was running around Austin, making sure people were getting their P-Terries, their Whataburger,
Oh God,
their fancy pizza.
how I miss Whataburger. I mean, there's delicious food here in Illinois, and we got Portillo's hot dogs, which shout out to Portillo's for being delicious. But there is nothing quite like a good Whataburger.
Yeah, it's always very tempting to not eat their food when I'm driving it to their destination.
And also just for your general well-being as a human, just not to eat excessive Whataburger.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, definitely not the healthiest of foods.
well, how
But it tastes the
it
best.
does
out
taste
of
the best.
everything
It's
else.
so good. I had an interesting weekend myself. So a good friend of mine, he came up for the weekend from Kansas. So he came in for a tech conference, which he had access to through his friend. He's been really into
Okay.
coding and doing a bunch of stuff and trying to get work in that industry. And so I had work on Friday, and he's staying at my place, and he texts me. He's like, "Come downtown and meet me downtown." So I hop on the train, and I get downtown, and he's like, "Well, you can't quite come in yet." So I did what every human does when they have to wait: eat tomato soup at some bistro at the city. It was tasty. It was
Ooh.
fun.
Ooh.
And then he takes me. He sends me an address. We do Find My Friends, and I go down to this building. I go upstairs, and I end up in the same room as the guy who invented the iPhone.
Steve Jobs?
Yes, the corpse of Steve Jobs.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, no, it's this designer guy who was like, I mean, well, not designer, but like, engineering guy who developed the first iPhone and worked for Apple for the longest time. He was talking about tech startups in this conference. It brought a bunch of people. There was somebody from NASA, another lady who did stuff about AI. So I was literally in a room where everybody was astronomically smarter than I was.
How did that make you
It was
feel?
fine. I didn't really meet many of them. I only met one guy who had a business downtown.
Yeah.
He seemed really cool, and it was just super interesting that was my Friday night, that I just would show up there, and we kind of just like walked around, went to a couple of bars later, and it was meeting up with some other folks, but it was just really funny,
Yeah.
just because like we didn't know where we were going, and like granted I should know where I'm going because I've been here for 3 months, but in my defense, I live in the suburbs.
You don't
I don't
live
live there.
Yeah, you just
Yeah,
commute
so
there.
we were trying to find these guys, and we must have circled and zigzagged around Trump Tower like 90 times because we didn't know which direction we were going, and like it was just 3 dudes arguing and which way to go, trying to follow trying to find the phone and where to go, and it was an ordeal. But the best part of the weekend, I would say, and it's to my surprise, I don't know, have you ever heard of Second City?
Second City. I
Okay,
have not.
so Second City is it's a comedy troupe of, like they do improv, they do stand up, they do shows, but it's a comedy troupe that feeds into Saturday Night Live. So like John and Jim Belushi were there, Amy Poehler, Jeff Garland, a bunch of really famous people have gone through Second City, and they were like, let's go see a show. And
So just to clarify, that's where they started, and then SNL kind of recruited them out of the trope.
basically, so it's just a
Okay.
funnel for them, and everybody there is like really talented and really funny.
I see.
And so I get there, and I didn't know what to expect, because whenever I think of like improv comedy, I just assume it's some kid who thought he was really funny in high school and continued it in college. and it's just really awkward because the situations always revolve around like sex, but they're not really funny. They're not very witty, and so it's just
Yeah,
like
it's
it's just
just
awkward,
awkward.
and you laugh out of like, haha, these kids are embarrassing themselves. Yeah. Um, but
Yeah,
no,
that's a big part of
yeah,
comedy.
but I was blown away. It was so unbelievably funny. It was like the show's 2.5 hours long. They did like they wrote their own songs. They did like these really funny improv bits. They interacted with the audience, and it was amazing. And like it consisted of 80% Trump jokes naturally. Um,
Yeah,
as
located conveniently next to Trump Tower.
located conveniently next to Trump Tower, about half a mile away.
Yeah, I'm sure he's got microphones and recording devices set up so you can hear all about what kind of dissent is happening in the troop right next
I
door.
mean, I think the funniest part was I think one of the ladies in the audience was like, was it like voted for Trump, so like
Yeah.
they're making all these jokes and like halfway through the show she's like, hey, no,
Wait a second.
it's like
This is what I signed up for.
this is I did not sign up for the liberal comedy troupe in Chicago.
Yeah.
So it was really funny.
Made a critical misstep
Yeah,
there.
it's like
Yeah.
basically if you voted for Trump and like are a Trump supporter, like you have to know that if you put on a television or if you do anything with comedy, he's probably gonna be made fun of.
It's too
It's
easy.
too easy.
It's so easy. It's almost not funny.
I mean, literally everybody's just you can't not have the jokes. So I mean, it was really funny because she started like saying these things, and then 9 people around her just like, shh, no. And it was just a great time, and I definitely recommend it. It was worth like every penny.
That's awesome. How much was it, if you don't mind
Oh
me
no,
asking?
not at all. It was about $30. And
Okay. Yeah, that's
and they
not
also
bad.
serve like booze, and they have food that was pretty tasty. So we got some appetizers. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they were all really really funny people. One of them was like named one of the best up and coming comics out of the Midwest. Yeah,
Oh, really?
this other one wrote for Cards Against Humanity. So
Yeah, that's a good place to
so
start.
she was really funny, and they had some really really funny jokes about. They had like a whole song about like because the whole premise of the show is that it's like the future, so there's all the kinds of different stuff about time and all these sorts of things. So they had like a song that was about like feminists in the future, and there was another song where the comedian, she was talking about like gay babies, and so she was like, so she herself was a lesbian, so she was like singing this whole song about like don't make fun of your kids because you have a gay baby. And it was like really funny. It was really good.
You never know when your baby just turns out to be gay.
Exactly. So why would you be assholes to them?
Yeah. It's good to think about. Well, I'm glad you had a good weekend. One key component of my weekend that I didn't mention initially was that I started and finished Stranger Things.
Ooh, good stuff.
And
Yeah, because I was making fun of you for not having finished it within the first 24 hours. Jeff, you were slacking.
I was a week late. At the very end of the last episode, it goes immediately into Behind Stranger Things, and the guy's like, if you're like me, you just finished watching 9 hours of straight Stranger Things. And I was like, can't relate to that.
Yeah, do you know that guy has an Oscar?
For what?
He wrote The Descendants.
Huh.
Yeah, Jim Rash. Yeah, he was on Community, and he was the dean on Community, and I love that show. And
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
He has an Oscar. It's great.
Leonardo DiCaprio?
He got one before
and
DiCaprio.
Jim Rash?
10 years
Yeah.
before DiCaprio, he got one. So, suck
That's
it,
funny.
Leo. But yeah, no. So what'd you think
But
about
yeah,
it? I mean, it was. I mean, like I said, you are a week late, so you're lame for that.
It's fresh
But
in
it's
my
fresh in
mind.
your mind now. So what'd you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I'm not raving over it. I think that there were some key plot points that kind of fell flat for me. Some characters that I didn't really they weren't very believable for me, but overall I think the show did a really good job of just being like a slightly feel good nostalgia trip of a show.
Yeah, and I think that's that's really the kind of main component of that show. I think that, in my opinion, which, I could be burned at the stake for this heresy, but I think that it doesn't really have the strongest story. I mean, it's pretty
No.
straightforward. It's not anything revolutionary, but it does do a lot
Mm-hmm.
of things really well. And
Yeah.
and
It has a style about it that's very consistent throughout. A lot of it that harkens back to the 80s and kind of pulls at the nostalgia strings of a generation that we just barely missed being born in. But yeah, you're right. It's a very straightforward story. A lot of the plot just kind of continues as you would expect it to. The whole thing with Will becoming Satan incarnate
Cthulhu
was kind
and
of,
Cthulhu.
yeah,
um,
evil Bran.
evil Bran. That's a great comparison. You said that, and I was like, well, that's totally
Yeah,
right. Um,
yeah. I have to credit my girlfriend
oh,
for that
well,
one.
thank you, Jeff's
She
girlfriend.
just saw him, uh, pretty much being a spy for this shadow monster, and she's like, "That's evil Bran."
So it's a Third Eye Raven.
Yeah,
But I think that I think what's good about that season and what they did with that the Shadow Monster, or I guess it had the Mind Flayer, right? That was the name.
yeah.
It has a name.
The mind
Yeah.
flamer. That too was hilarious. Where
I-
Dustin's just hyping this thing up, and at the end he's like, "I have no idea what I'm talking
yeah, it's
about."
like, and then he just stops and goes, "It's a game. It's just a game." I think that it was good in setting up the main villain of the series. It's not going to be
Yeah.
a day-to-day or maybe even week-to-week villain that they have to fight, but it will later seasons until when, kind of when it gets in the end, they're all going to have to team together and defeat it, right? Like every good 80s film,
Right.
Good against evil.
Because they didn't actually kill it at the end of the season. They just put a Band-Aid over the problem. They closed the gate, but
Literally a
who's
Band-Aid.
to say that the gate won't open back up?
Yeah, but everyone knows the true standout of season 2, my man, Bob. Bob is the best.
Bob.
Bob is a bro. He's great.
I shit you not, his death was more like impactful and troubling for me than the Red Wedding or like half of the things in Game of Thrones. Like once I saw that happen, I had to pause it, and then I left, and I forget where I went. I had to get a HEB or something, but it pissed me off so much because he was such a wholesome good guy, and it's always those that are the good guys that die first.
Well, geez, Jeff. Spoilers. Come on.
It's been 2 weeks.
No, I mean, not only that, but like a spoiler for all the 12 people who haven't seen it.
Yeah,
But yeah, no.
you deserve it. 12 people.
Get on your game. Yeah, and I think that what I loved about Bob was that it was Sean Austin. He from being from the Goonies,
Yeah.
being in Lord of the Rings. He is this actor.
So lovable.
Yeah, he's a very lovable guy. He has a track record of being the hero, and Stranger Things does that really well. It brings in old stars from the 80s, Winona Ryder, Matthew Modine,
Right.
and all these guys, and plays on not only their own characters that they've played in the past, but also kind of going into normal archetypes that 80s characters had, but then redefining them as
Yeah.
well, which is why I think a lot of people really like Steve Harrington.
Yeah. He had a very interesting character arc over the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, and I'm glad they upgraded him to a major character. I think Joe Carey does a great job with him. He's like really funny. Him and Dustin together are great.
Yeah.
That's poor Dustin just in that last episode. It just sucks. It's so sad.
Yeah.
But he danced with Nancy in the end, so Nancy was being a good person, and it worked out for the youths in that show.
I know. I can't believe that those girls rejected him with that haircut.
with the
He was a stone cold fox.
with the very 80s like Jerry curl haircut.
It was beautiful.
And the was it
Ice Cube would have been jealous.
was it with the Farrah Fawcett spray too?
Yeah. It's got to be the Farrah Fawcett spray.
That's the finishing touch. That's the only way it's gonna work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
But yeah, no, Steve was
Steve
great.
was great. I got to go ahead and say it. My favorite character by far is still Hopper. I think Hopper is dynamic. He's got great one-liners. He might just sometimes be the typical cop of the town, but at the same time, he's still just a great hero. And I think this season expanded upon him in a way where he was able to be the emotional pull for that show, because I think that show had stronger moments in season one that made you feel more emotional, just because the nature of the story was about them rescuing their best friend, and this one was like, yes, it's about rescuing their best friend, but he's physically still there. You know what I mean?
He's still there, yeah.
And I think that was the scenes between him and 11, where he was being the father, where he was being the good guy, and they clashed, and obviously he didn't mean what he said and all that. I think that the guy who played Hopper, I can't remember his name right now for the life of me, but just fleshing all that out and bringing them together, I think that was really excellent. And the music, always on point, especially his little like meme dance now, the one that like the internet keeps like making memes of, was amazing.
Yeah. The point that you made about him being a dynamic character is something that I really agree with, because the show could have taken the route where he was just uniformly a good guy who did nothing wrong, but in this season especially, he made some mistakes that kind of showed a little bit of his human side. He's a flawed person, but most importantly, he acknowledges those flaws and he apologizes for them and makes up for them. So like when him and 11 were clashing, him and Jane were clashing, and he was just yelling at her, and then she breaks down and breaks all the windows in the house. That's not a positive moment for either of them, but if you put yourself into his shoes when you're trying to shelter and protect a fucking wizard,
a literal wizard
mage psychopath, you can understand where the frustration comes from. And then the whole thing where he kind of dropped the ball with Bob, he had to protect the kids outside, but it shows his flaws too. He can't do everything, and there's times where he doesn't do enough, and that just overall makes him a more compelling character.
Yeah, and I think I know we've spoken about it before, but I really hope that at the beginning of the season, Steve is talking to Nancy, and he's talking about how, I got to write these college essays to get in, and I really need help and all those sorts of things. What's my future going to be?
Yeah.
And I really hope that Steve, because I don't see him leaving, because he's going to be graduated by the time next season starts. I don't see him leaving for college and being a minor character. I really hope he becomes a cop and works with Hopper. I think that would be a great storyline between the two, because ultimately they are very different character types. Steve is still a hero, but he is the witty, I would say Chris Pratt Star-Lord type of hero, right? Like still does good, but snaps those one-liners and
sarcastically.
Yeah, and it's sarcastic, but still a good guy. And Hopper's the more traditional, I wouldn't say by the books, but more traditional American hero. And I think them two would play really well together, especially since the rest of the police are just really stupid. They're all just like,
they essentially don't exist.
They say a few things that are kind of funny, but they just don't do anything. They're like really bad cops. Like they just don't care that their town is like invaded by aliens, and I'm really surprised no one has noticed this like happening.
I know. Hopper is in a tunnel, a supernatural tunnel, trying to solve the mystery of the rotting pumpkins. He's in there, he's fighting off the crawling vines, and then he knows what the other cops are doing.
When you said that, it sounded like
they're just not up to snuff.
I mean, you're right. It sounded like a Hardy Brothers book. Oh, the Hardy Brothers.
Yeah.
The mysteries of the rotting pumpkins.
Yeah. Turned out to be a little bit more than that.
It did. And like, how did they not realize that, like, crops are dying, there's like, goop everywhere, it's probably not safe to breathe. Like, maybe there's nothing going on.
It's like, in the 3-mile radius around this one government facility, all the crops are dying. It must be that one disgruntled farmer who's poisoning everything around this one secret government facility
Well, I wouldn't
in the
trust.
middle of the
I
town.
wouldn't trust Old Man Jenkins either, so that would be my guess first too.
Yeah,
Um,
that's gonna be the plot twist of season 3. It was Old Man Jenkins is the shadow monster.
damn it, I knew it.
Yeah.
But I think you and I both agreed. We talked about it. Episode 7, it sucked.
Oh my god.
It sucked.
I don't know what happened. Like, there was no reason for that episode to exist in its majority. Like, I understand the point where, like, she needs to see her mom and, like, connect with her on a deeper level, but it just, it was just so bad. There's so many bad things to say about it. I can't even think about where to start.
Well, okay. Let's before we get into how bad and why it's bad. I will say some things that are not pros, but are basically kind of like I understand why it was there. So, firstly, it's there because you need to have characterization for 11 and character growth. Got it. Makes sense. But you can have character growth in other ways. It doesn't need to be like that.
Exactly.
And secondly, it's there to place a seed with the possibility of not necessarily a spin-off, but the beginning of their quest to go find other people like 11. You know, she's 11, the other person was 8, so there's got to be, you know, at least
right.
many other people, a
bunch
bunch more, who probably will come into the picture in the big finale. And it does play, you know, homage to like that punk 80s like kind of aesthetic, which is fine.
Right. Like counterculture.
Yeah, the whole counterculture thing, and there's a lot of great films that come from that kind of style and you know, that sort of filmography, but it just wasn't good, and I just didn't care, and the acting was bad except for 11. It was just
that was the worst part for me. I think that there could have been a way to talk about and introduce a series of people who, you know, their leader is a kid from the government facility, just like 11, and, you know, they are getting revenge. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that, but the acting was just so overdone. It was just really goofy. The entire thing was goofy, and it just wasn't good.
I agree, and not only just goofy, but like 8 didn't even have a consistent voice. It was like, it just didn't make sense. Her accent was all over the place.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. Like, and the worst part about it too is that I understand if you were to spread that story out over several episodes, you know, kind of like as a story arc for 11, but they just cut out of the climax of episode 6,
Yeah.
and you know, you have that ending scene with the Demodogs crawling up the elevator shaft. You know, Hopper is downstairs with the cool
Right.
doctor guy, who I'm glad he was cool because he sucked in Aliens, and he was kind of the reason why everything had happened in Aliens. So redemption, and like you know, I was so amped up about it. I was like, whoa, this is great. Like, this is, you know, we're getting to the real action of everything, and then it just cuts to this like really annoying story that just was kind of silly, and the only good part about it was that it took place in Chicago, so I was like, hell yeah, Chicago's dope. But
Yeah.
other than that, it was like, no.
I know. And when the season is only 9 episodes long, when you dedicate almost an entire episode to a plot that doesn't matter, it really has a negative effect on the series. Because it completely, like you said, it cut up the pacing. I mean, it could have just been a thrill ride ending from episode 6 onwards, and it really just kind of pumped the brakes on the whole story. I think that there were a couple of things from that episode that developed 11 in a pretty interesting way. Like when they're at the dude's house who electrocuted her mom, and she decides not to kill him because she sees that he has kids too. I think that was pretty good, but everything else around it, it was just it just fell flat.
Yeah, it did have a good soundtrack, that episode, though. Overall, though, the whole series has a
True.
great soundtrack.
Yeah, they did that really well.
And I think that this soundtrack tended to be more pure to the 80s aesthetic, because if I'm not wrong, one of the songs used in season 1 was was a piece by Moby from the 2000s.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
really?
like you remember the scene in season one where Hopper and Will's mom are in the Upside Down, and they're like kind of combing through all the I guess cocoons, and then they find Will and they like bring him back to life.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so the song playing there is Moby's "When It's Cold, I Feel Like Dying," which sounds really sad because it's a sad song.
Yeah.
But it works in that context. But it was a lot. You know, this soundtrack I gotta give it to them. The score and the song choice is
It's
excellent.
more authentically
It's
80s.
it,
Yeah.
it's got so many great. It's got the Ghostbusters song. It's got I think there's some Toto in there. It's just it's really great and worth listening to it on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, or buying it. I think that is one of the main draws for that show because that show this season did jump in production value and in editing. I think they got a lot stronger
Right.
with their camera work and their cinematography, which was really cool. They had
Hmm.
a lot of shots that were like tracking shots that did like then flipped when it, like the upside down came into Will's reality, or the lighting
Hmm.
was excellent. Pretty much everything in the tunnels. Um,
Yeah, they made it look super spooky, and the whole effect that they put in with the floating particles in the tunnels, it really made it seem like a supernatural environment.
yeah, they did.
Because it was almost like they were like it was like an anti gravity scenario almost, and it kind of adds like this surreal element, but then also it just laid on this atmosphere of how disgusting the tunnels were.
Yeah, and I think that they had those floating particles in season one, didn't they?
I honestly couldn't tell you. It's been a while since I've seen season
Yeah, me
one.
too. I think they did. But just continuing that
Okay,
and,
but
and, and maintaining that aesthetic, I think it's
mhm.
that's the greatest part of that show is that it's so well done, even in a lapse of writing and sometimes acting. I think all the kids are great.
Yeah,
I think all the main characters are great. I think that some of the secondary actors um, are just very
they could
cheesy.
use some work.
Yeah, cause very cheesy and could use some work. And I think my
Yeah.
main kind of way that I look at it is this: is that Stranger Things is so full of tugging at the nostalgia strings and so good at it, but it fails to do the one thing of what it's trying to emulate. It fails to truly capture what those films and TV shows that that inspired it did back then.
Okay. Do you think it comes across as more of an imitation of them rather than an authentic rehashing of those tropes?
Yeah,
Or
and I think so. And I think that when the show takes risks, it becomes more authentic. But a lot of the callbacks and a lot of the situations that are just trying to be they're trying to pay service to these older films and TV shows, I think it does come off as a little too imitation-y and not quite
okay.
as strong as it could be. Because the favorite scenes this show has are the ones where it does take where it is itself, where um, it's fully expressing its voice, and I think that that's one of its strengths.
Hmm.
Like, oh God, what am I trying to say? Like, what scenes did I really that stood out to me? Jeez, I think the kids add a layer to it too. Dustin's great. Finn is just Finn's great too, even though he's kind of a fuck boy.
Yeah.
I mean, but he's great.
He's gonna be a problem in about 4 or 5 years.
He was great in It. I mean, that was like one of my favorite parts of It. So,
Yeah, he was so funny. He had the entire theater just guffawing the entire movie. Like the line he had about they were talking about how the town used to be a beaver trapping camp, and then it was like, still is, am I right, boys?
yeah.
There's a dad sitting next to me, and he fucking lost it.
Yeah, he just like
He was-
he's like, is it right, my boys? And,
he was
and no one like
riding.
says anything, right?
Yeah, no, that he was so good in that movie.
I really like him, and he's also just like a generally funny person when like in interviews, like he was on Fallon the other night and he was pretty funny. So
Yeah,
I
yeah, they're all naturally funny. Whoever casted them, whoever found them, did a really, really fantastic job at finding new talent.
yeah, all of them really.
'Cause all of them are great, and I don't know where they were before this, and I'm really glad that they're getting such a big opportunity at such a young
Mm-hmm.
age.
And they expanded Will's role too, and Will got a lot more screen time. Yeah, I think that actor was
Yeah.
able to do great with it. I think they all, yeah. I'm pretty sure Finn Wolfhard like has a band and is from like Canada or something, so he does that. Um,
Of course.
Naturally, Canadians are
If
taking
your
over
name's
the world.
Finn Wolfhard, you gotta do everything to the fullest.
Yeah, is like 12-year-old grunge guy playing alternative music, really like Sonic Youth.
Exactly.
My Bloody Valentine, bands like that. But
Yeah, if Sonic Youth was a person, it would be Finn.
Finn. But yeah, I mean, what any other thoughts that you had that we hadn't gone over?
I guess I could touch a little bit on your point about Will's expansion of his character. I think a lot of the lines that he was given, like a lot of the scenes that he had to act in, were really hard to act in, and he killed it this season. Like when he's strapped down and he's like, let me go, and he says it like 20 times. I think it's hard to make that sound convincing, but he really brought out this, like, the desperation of the monster inside of him not wanting to be in that situation, and I think he did a super good job with that.
Yeah, I think so too. It was never really fake, right? It never felt like he was playing a character. It felt very lived through.
Yeah, and there's a lot of scenes where he was crying and he looked traumatized, and I mean, shit, when I'm assuming he's like 13 or 14. That's hard to do.
It's hard to do when you're not 13 or 14.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes years of practice to pull off something like that. And
I mean, look at Nick Cage.
yeah, and 11 too. I mean, she's constantly sitting and crying and yelling, and it still is very convincing every time she does it.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, like her stunted dialogue because of the environment that she grew up in, where she never got a proper education or socialization experience. I think that is also very easy to come across as fake or played up, but yeah, she did a great job too.
She did, and I think what was I gonna? Yeah, I was talking to everybody always says, poor Will. I mean, and Will's gone through so much, and I totally agree. But it was really funny. I was talking to some friends, and so my friends are like, yeah, also Steve, I just feel bad for Steve because Steve always takes so many L's. And I went, yeah, Steve is young and handsome and white and funny and charming. And wait, no, hang on. He's okay.
In terms of the amount of L's that characters have taken in that show, Steve is far from the highest.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, he has issues with Nancy, but like, for being a white privileged dude, he's okay. he'll be fine. Society, he'll be fine.
But yeah, is there anything else that you want to go over?
Let's see about the show. No, I think we covered it pretty well. I'm pissed off that the Cowboys beat the Chiefs. Yeah, it was.
I watched a little bit of that game. I was in a restaurant getting someone's barbecue, and I caught glimpses of it.
Yeah,
I think the Cowboys were ahead at that point.
Yeah. They had a good game, great game. One of their wide receivers had like the only 100+ yard game. Like the season, Dak Prescott had a great game, and we have a great team. The Chiefs do, but I think the issue was that we just got so many penalties, and the defense just didn't produce when it needed to, as did the offense. They didn't execute quite as well as they have in the past. It's okay, you can't win all of them. You can't be. It's basically impossible to do that.
Yeah. Do you think there's any issues with the reffing? Or was it all just the Chiefs fucking up?
They basically mostly fucked up. But
okay.
We still had some great players. There was a great play, last play of the first half. The Chiefs are like on the, I want to say, 35-yard line, 40-yard line. And there's 2 seconds left on the clock. And so normally in that kind of play and in that kind of time of the game, the quarterback will throw a Hail Mary and we'll throw it all the way in the end zone, right? And so we had our players run a route, and he had a slants into the middle, and Alex Smith throws the ball to Tyreek Hill, and he catches it on the 50, and he starts running, and the two tight ends that are like running with him are kind of about 5 to 10 yards ahead of him, and they start They start running, and another wide receiver hits one guy. The tight end blocks one dude, pushes him out of the way, runs and hits the other guy, creates a gap, and he outruns everybody and hits the gap and goes and scores a touchdown. It was awesome.
That's crazy from the 50-yard line.
Yeah, he just ran. It was like 65-yard
awesome.
touchdown. And normally that does, when the clock hits 0, those kind of plays don't happen. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. No, that sounds incredible.
But we lost, so I guess that doesn't really. Well, we have a bye week this week though, so the players will get a chance to rest. Andy Reid, the coach, he does really well after bye week, so pretty excited about that. And then basketball season starts up real soon. The Jayhawks play Kentucky in Chicago on the 14th. So
are you gonna see those?
Well, I tried to get tickets, but they were like $250, and I was like, nope. Yeah. I was like, I cannot afford that.
Like my alma mater, dude.
So
I just started working.
I'm not I can't afford that, but I am gonna watch it. I'll see if I can go into town and watch it with some other KU people.
Okay.
But we'll see how that goes because work runs kind of late in the games, like at 7:30. So fingers crossed. But if not, I'll still watch it and it'll be great. I'm excited to see the team back on the court and playing with everybody. We should have a pretty good season. We got some NBA prospects, some freshmen who are excellent players, and it's just really weird to realize that they are all now younger than me and will forever be younger than me when it was
Yeah.
It's so weird.
It's crazy, man.
But
I mean, we were talking about the kids from Stranger Things. They're way younger than us.
Yeah, and they have more swag and like they're a hell of a lot funnier than I am.
Exactly. More successful.
Yeah, more successful. They're like 14.
Yeah. Because I'm so used to being the youngest person of the people that are in pop culture or people that, just celebrities in general. And now that I'm starting to get older than some of them, it's a weird feeling for sure.
I wonder when the average, what the threshold is when we will, for the most part, be more, older than the average popular artist and comedian and actor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe 30 or 35.
Yeah, I would say probably 35. Who knows?
It's going to be weird.
Who knows?
14 years for me.
Yeah, time flies, unfortunately.
Yeah, it really has. This semester especially has probably been one of my fastest semesters. It's already November. I have 1 month left of classes.
You got 5 weeks,
and I
right?
have my finals. It's ridiculous. I really don't know where the time went. I guess it's just because I'm working a lot this semester, and so what free time I do have, I'm typically studying, and so it just makes the days go by faster. But I just don't know how it happened so quickly. I only got 1 semester left.
Yeah, well, enjoy it. Hopefully it's not too difficult your last semester and you finish up strong with all your tests. But
Yeah, I actually registered for my classes, and so I'm taking my public health core classes, and then next semester I'm finishing up all of my upper level bio classes. So that's immunology, microbiome lab, and what's that third one? Human systems physiology. So I'm taking 12 hours next semester, which is less than I'm taking this semester. So that should be good, but the material is harder. I'm not too worried about it though.
That's good. Yeah, I'm sure you'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I gotta head out because I got work in the morning, like every other good working American is doing. Waking up and
red-blooded American.
Red-blooded American.
Wake up with a crack of dawn. Drive your F-150 down to the factory.
Well, let's not. What's wrong with having an F-150 working in a factory?
Absolutely nothing. Every red-blooded American should have an F-150 and work in the factory.
If they're made in America, you should support Americans.
Absolutely. You drive your F-150 down to the Ford factory, you make some more F-150s, some more red-blooded Americans can get their hands on an F-150.
I think you've said F-150 in that sentence more than any human should say F-150 at one time. But anyway.
Maybe true. Yeah.
No, that's true. But I'm thankful I have a job. It's going all right, so that's good. All right, man. Great talk. of course we're still ruining everything, but Stranger Things was great. If anybody has not seen it, why are you listening to this? Firstly, and secondly, go enjoy it. It's not too long of a watch, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, really good show.
All right.
All right, man. I'll see you next week, or we kill something else, which has been undetermined for now. It's probably gonna be Blade Runner or something.
We'll see. Well, I mean, I'm sure there'll be something else to talk about.
We'll see.
But thanks for listening, everybody. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy everything, and we'll see you all later.
Sayonara.